Hi everyone, I'm Dr.Animaction. Welcome to the third and final part of my 1999 coverage in the animated 90s series. We'll go ahead and knock this video out, and then I'll do the 90s summary video before the end of the year and finish things off with an episode that covers any shows I may have missed over the past 2 decades. Other than that, I'll also be trying to finish up the Hanna-Barbera retrospective and release a few smaller videos as well. November was a pretty busy month, but things should slow down and free up more video time for me again now. Of course, I say that, and then I end up needing an extra day for this video, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, let's go ahead and get going with this one, and we'll figure the rest out as we move along. We've only got a couple of categories to cover in this video, so we'll start off with the slice of life. Kicking us off here is the Fox Family series Angela Anaconda, which ran for 65 episodes across 3 seasons. This one is about the 8-year-old main character and her friends, family, and classmates in the small town of Tapwater Springs. It follows their normal daily lives, but is made somewhat more interesting by the vivid daydreams Angela has in each episode about karmic retribution being inflicted on her rivals and enemies, which is honestly pretty dark, but also pretty funny at the same time. I mean, we can all relate to that, right? Right? Okay, I'll assume you all said yes, and that it's not just me, and we'll keep going. One other thing I'll mention here, though, since I've talked about the toy aisle gender divide in the past, is that the series creators did a good job of not making Angela, quote, typically feminine, unquote, and created a character that was willing and happy to engage in any activity, regardless of traditional gender leanings. Next here, we'll turn our attention to Kids WB and age things up a bit for a show about a group of 6th graders. Detention was a series that followed the antics of 8 kids causing mischief and mayhem for their school, that inevitably ends up in the detention of the title. It's one of several shows in the same vein released around this time, like Recess and Hey Arnold, with a diverse cast of characters and some fairly grounded circumstances. But it didn't last nearly as long as those and ended after a short 13-episode run. Let's stay in the world of middle school, but head outside for the next show I have to talk about. Rocket Power followed the extreme sport-loving Rocket siblings and their pair of techie friends on their adventures in the action sport lifestyle. Episodes often found them entering competitions or making videos in any of the several PlayStation 1 era extreme sports like skate and snowboarding, surfing, and BMX biking. It lasted for 71 episodes over 4 seasons on Nickelodeon. We'll close this category by turning our attention across the cartoon divide now and look at a Cartoon Network series called Mike, Lou, and Og, this year's entry in the lineup of cartoons. In this show, we follow an 11-year-old city girl named Mike, short for Michaelin, who ends up living with a community of indigenous peoples on a tropical island as a foreign exchange student. While there, she befriends the inventive Og, who uses his ingenuity to create replacements for the comforts of the city Mike misses, and Lou, who's named herself Princess of the Island. The show covers their daily efforts to make the island an interesting place to live, and lasted for 26 episodes over its 2 seasons. So one more category to go for this year, decade, and millennium all at the same time, and it's a pretty big one. We close things out on a high note with several series to cover here in the action category, and we'll start with one called Mega Babies. Do you like Powerpuff Girls? Want to take that concept and age it down even further? That's what Mega Babies did, with a cast consisting of a trio of infants who were given superpowers when the incubators they were in got hit by lightning during a planetary alignment. Their nurse also gained superintelligence in the same incident, and remains with the babies as their caregiver. Mostly the show deals with problems and threats that directly affect things babies would be concerned with, but did so with entirely too much gross-out humor for my liking. It ran for 26 episodes over 2 seasons on Fox Family. Continuing on, we'll take a look at something with older characters, but for a somewhat younger crowd. Rescue Heroes was a show based on a line of Fisher-Price toys of the same name, about a team of specialized operatives working in areas of firefighting, law enforcement, medical, and search and rescue. Sure, the characters had cheesy, kid-friendly names, and it was based on toys designed for the 3-and-up crowd, but it was honestly a great show. Think of G.I. Joe or 1987's Cops, but skewed a little younger and with a lineup that fought disasters and accidents instead of bad guys. As a former first responder myself, and coming from a long family history of various first responders, it was great to see such a concept with some cool character and equipment designs. It lasted for 39 episodes over 3 seasons, first on CBS before moving to Kids WB, and even got a YouTube-exclusive revival series in the late 2010s. Oh, and those cheesy character names actually had some real gems among them, like rescue diver Maureen Biologist and the astronaut Roger Houston. Very pleasing to my pun-loving self. Well, since Rescue Heroes came out of Canada, let's go ahead and look at a series from an associated geography with the French show The Magician. This one's essentially a superhero series, with the main character being the titular magician and fighting organized crime in the futuristic Electro City. The magician, who's named Ace Cooper, along with his sidekick and pet panther, help the police in their efforts against the wicked casino owner Blackjack Malone. It's kind of like someone threw Batman, Doctor Strange, and Siegfried and Roy in a blender, but actually came out a lot cooler than that initially sounds. It got a single 39-episode season when it premiered here on Fox, and don't worry, we'll have more superheroes shortly. Our next series is, well, it's kind of a little bit of everything. Cyber, we'll assume it's Cyber 9 New Dawn follows the journey of Jack, a teenager filling the Chosen One archetype, destined to free the embattled world of Tirana from the evil Machestro. Every time I read that, I think of cheese, but I guess that's Manchego. Either way, it's a weird name for a villain. Whatever. Jack has an all-powerful computer, the Cyber 9 of the title, that allows him to travel to various other worlds, fighting evil and recruiting new party members in the best RPG stylings, all the while evading Manchego's army of what are, for all intents and purposes, vampires. Or, more specifically, people who can't go out in the sun because it hurts, like the antagonist from the Omega Man. Also, with his literal ex machina computer, the series reminds me of the movie Dungeon Master. You guys remember that? It had Bull from Night Court as like an all-powerful Satan-type character. Yeah, it was fun. Oh hey, ironic that I called it Ex Machina, since the vampire-like bad guys in this show are called Machina, which really doesn't make any sense. It lasted for a single 22-episode season on Fox Kids. Now, where to go from here? I guess we'll stick with the Save the Planet from Evil Dictators theme and check in with this year's contribution to the Transformers mythology, Beast Machines. This series was a direct continuation of Beast Wars and followed the surviving Maximals upon their return to Cybertron and the discovery that the planet has been overrun by drones called Viacons under the control of Megatron. Who else? The Maximals get turned into new, techno-organic versions of themselves and become a resistance force attempting to free the sparks of Cybertron's imprisoned population and introduce organic life into the planet's ecosystem at the same time. At the risk of upsetting any hardcore Beast Machines fans out there, I personally think this may be the weakest entry in the entire non-live action Transformers catalog. Feel free to share your own thoughts about that in the comments, though. The rest of the year's lineup is pretty stacked, a statement I'm sure quite a few of you may disagree with, but let's head back to Earth for a series that I think is actually kind of awesome. NASCAR Racers is what happens when you take the brand name and only the most basic core concept of NASCAR, with car goes fast, outfit each racer with a version of the Mach 5, and put them on a track made by a Mario Kart designer. I mean, yeah, the show might have been a less comedic wacky races, with a good team versus a bad team and each episode being about a new race, but as I've said in the past, I'm a bit of a technophile, so the designs of the cars and the gear had me sold. It may not have had the deepest storyline or the most high-concept premise, but it's fun. A lot of fun. I don't doubt a lot of you won't agree, and I'm willing to bet a lot of people pass simply because of the NASCAR label, but I promise there's enough here to enjoy. It lasted for 2 seasons and a total of 26 episodes on Fox Kids. Next up is a series based on a 2-issue comic by Frank Miller, creator of such acclaimed works as Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, Sin City, and 300. This isn't any of those, though, but rather a show called Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot. This one's about the most sophisticated robot ever built, the childlike Rusty, who's essentially an Astro Boy type analog, and his hero and mentor, the enormous war machine Big Guy. Rusty thinks that Big Guy is the most amazing robot in history, but he doesn't realize that he's actually a battlesuit piloted by a human. The series follows the pair as they defend their Earth-like world, and specifically Neutronic City, from various threats. One of the best things about the series is the design aesthetic, which has that awesome kind of retro-futuristic look and feel of the Fallout games, with Big Guy even sharing some design elements with that series' Liberty Prime robot as well as DC Comics' Stripe. The show was a personal favorite of mine from the year and ran for 26 episodes over 2 seasons on Fox Kids. This next series is one that I may have missed during its initial run, but have since been able to catch up on. It's also one that deserves to be part of any Best Cartoons of the Year discussion. Roswell Conspiracies, Aliens, Myths, and Legends aired for 40 episodes as part of the Bobot Kids network and followed Nick Logan, a special agent for the enigmatic Global Alliance. The Alliance is a secret section of the government that's been monitoring and covering up alien activity on Earth for decades, even before the actual supposed alien landing in Roswell, which it staged as a cover-up for its ongoing activities. The aliens in the show come in several different forms, and interestingly are used as representative of several mythological creatures, like werewolves, vampires, and banshees. What makes the show really superb, though, is the deep, mature storyline that runs continuously throughout the entire series. Unlike too many cartoons of the era, this one is allowed to tell its story all the way through, building through a crescendo over its run with a real end-cap finale that brings the series to a satisfying conclusion. It's another one that I'd highly recommend, especially to fans of anything like The X-Files or Fringe. I kinda think I went out of order there, though, since now I'm heading back into the world of comic books, specifically Argentinian comic books with the series Cyber 6. This one has a somewhat complicated story that I'm going to have to tap dance around a little bit, but it's about a genetically engineered clone that was created by a, well, let's call him unscrupulous scientist from a certain pre-World War II but now mostly defunct Central European political party with very narrow worldviews. The scientist fled to South America, where he continued his experiments by creating 5,000 clones, which he intended to use as super soldiers. However, when he discovers they're flawed, he destroys all of them, except for two. One whose brain is transferred into the body of a panther, and a second who goes into hiding, the eponymous Cyber 6. She spends her days in the guise of a male teacher named Adrian, and her nights fighting against the scientist and his monstrosities as the cape and fedora-clad woman Cyber 6. Along the way, she crosses paths in her Cyber 6 persona with her fellow teacher Lucas, her panther brother Data 7, and several other characters as she hunts the Doctor's creation to harvest sustenance, an artificial chemical that she needs to maintain her clone body. It's full of interesting themes like conflicted origins and hidden identities, as Cyber 6 questions her rights to a normal human existence due to being lab-created, and deals with her developing feelings for Lucas as she interacts with him in both aspects of her life and in both her male and female personas. It lasted for a single 13-episode season on Fox Kids, but deserved much more with its dark story and mature subject matter. Staying with comics, though, we also got a few new takes on some classic characters this year, starting with Avengers, United They Stand. This one is fairly derided for a Marvel series, and people don't seem to like the whole transforming armored suits aspect of it, but I've got to be honest, I really like this show. It had a great lineup of characters that don't get enough love and attention from Marvel's roster, including some of my favorites like Wonder Man and Tigra. It had some interesting story ideas, with Hank Pym trying to fill the leader role but always being in the shadow of Captain America, tons of nods to fans of the comics, and a great villain lineup with the Masters of Evil. Plus, and this will probably really push the show's critics over the edge, I didn't really mind the armor gimmick, since it in no way really fundamentally changed or modified the characters. It was just a generally fun and fresh take on the Avengers, and I appreciated it for that. The series only lasted 13 episodes on Fox Kids. The Avengers weren't the only Marvel property to get a reimagining, though, since Spider-Man did this year as well, with Spider-Man Unlimited. This series sees Spider-Man building a new suit out of nanotechnology so that he can travel to Counter-Earth in pursuit of Venom and Carnage and rescue a missing John Jameson after he was blamed for the astronaut being lost in the first place. He arrives on Counter-Earth to find that John has joined a group of freedom fighters against the High Evolutionary, who controls the planet with the power of his bestial army. Even worse, Counter-Earth is home to a huge number of symbiotes, forming a hive mind called the Synoptic, which Venom and Carnage have joined. Spider-Man, of course, ends up joining the Freedom Fighters as well, and in the tradition of DC's Earth 2, we also get to meet superheroic takes on several classic Spider-Man villains over the series' 13 episodes. This one also ran on Fox Kids, and was a new and interesting take on Spider-Man, even if the formula itself had been used with other characters before. The new suit looked pretty good too. So here we are, the end of the list and the last of the series that I'll be covering for the 90s. Well, not counting those that are going to be on my makeup list. But I wanted to close things out on the highest note possible, and it would honestly be hard to hit a higher note than this one, as the last series we're going to talk about is one of the decade's best, Batman Beyond. This was a great show, and the perfect way to treat a storied character like Batman. It continued the tale into the future where Bruce Wayne couldn't physically handle the role of the Dark Knight anymore, and instead saw him become a mentor as he passed the mantle on. Terry McGinnis as the new Batman was an awesome character, combining several of the personality traits we'd seen in previous incarnations of Robin, none of whom appeared in the series and were only mentioned. Well, other than Tim Drake in the Return of the Joker movie. The new suit and the Batmobile were ridiculously cool, and a reasonable evolution of Batman's gadgets and tactics as well. Best of all, it does a great job of tying into the rest of the DC Universe mythology, and even crossed over with the other series of the time, including Justice League and Static Shock. And similar to Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, and Alan Burnett's other creation, Harley Quinn, this version of Batman was adopted into the DC comic universe as well. I personally think the series is capable of standing side by side with Batman the Animated Series in a lot of ways, and is a definite contender for the best of the decade. And sure, maybe I'll do some video rankings like that at some point in the future. We shall see. And now we can finally take a look at the year and see where we can watch this huge boatload of shows as of December 2023. As usual, there's a decent number that we can't, or at least not easily, so we'll go over those first. This list includes Anthony Ant, Blaster's Universe, The Magician, The Brothers Flub, The Cat and Birdie Warner Rooney Pinky Brainy Big Cartoony Show, which didn't really contain any new material so you can watch the original material in various different ways, The Dick and Paula Celebrity Special, MTV's Downtown, The Kids from Room 402, Mega Babies, Mickey Mouse Works, Mike Lou and Og, NASCAR Racers, Fred on Your Head, Station Zero, Weirdos, and Cyber 9 New Dawn. As usual, YouTube's a pretty good place to start looking for these, as I know for a fact at least a few of them are fully available here. The others are much more readily available today though, with several freely able to be streamed. Archie's Weird Mysteries, Beast Machine's Transformers, and Sabrina the Animated Series are all available on Tubi, Pluto, and the Roku channel, with Roswell, Conspiracies, Myths, and Legends on Tubi, Pluto, and Prime. Tubi also has Monster Rancher, Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century, and The PJs, which is also on the Roku channel. And Pluto has George and Martha, Rescue Heroes, which is also on Peacock, and Ripley's Believe It or Not, which is also on Roku channel. And lastly, Roku has Angela Anaconda, and Peacock also has the new Woody Woodpecker Show. Moving on to the paid services, there are several where some of these shows can be streamed. Hulu has Family Guy, Futurama, and Digimon Adventure. Disney Plus has Avengers United They Stand and Spider-Man Unlimited. And Max, or HBO Max if you prefer, has A Little Curious, Home Movies, and Crashbox. You can watch Sonic Underground, Rocket Power, and SpongeBob SquarePants on Paramount Plus, and Zaboomafoo with a PBS Kids subscription. And then there are the shows that you can digitally purchase through various providers, including Batman Beyond, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Detention, which is only on Prime, Dilbert, Ed, Ed and Eddie, and Happy Tree Friends. Last but not least, though, is my personal favorite way to watch any series, which is by picking them up on DVD. You can do that with Archie's Weird Mysteries, at least partially, Batman Beyond, Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Detention, Dilbert, Dragon Tales, though you'll have to piecemeal that one, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Family Guy, Futurama, Happy Tree Friends, again, partially, Mission Hill, The New Woody Woodpecker Show, again, piecemeal, Sonic Underground, SpongeBob SquarePants, Digimon Adventure, and Roswell, Roughnecks, and Sabrina, all of which are partially available. Plenty of shows from this year can also be found on out-of-print DVDs if you want to spend that kind of money, so who knows how long the rest of them will be available at a reasonable price. And with that, I'll bring the year, decade, millennium, and this particular video all to a close. These past 10 years have been a bit of a workout, and not without some mistakes and omissions, but I'll make up for those in the next video or two. Also, as I've said with an eye toward how much effort the 2000s and beyond will take, I'll be turning my attention backward after the new year and taking a look at the animated 70s. I hope everyone's enjoyed walking through all of these years and looks forward to more in the future. Make sure to like and subscribe to see the rest of this series and all of my other side series as well, and check out some of my other efforts and projects at the various links in the video description. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned and stay tuned, as in cartoons. Later.